Wanda and Vision drive into the new town of Westview as newlyweds and move right into the new house. They joke about the special day on the calendar, which neither one of them obviously knows why it's highlighted. Agnes, the annoying neighbor, is at the door and she invites herself into the house. She starts asking questions about Wanda's marital status, and Wanda quickly replies that she's indeed married, to a man, a human man at that. They start talking about the special day, and Agnes immediately involves herself even deeper into Wanda's business by volunteering to help her plan for the night. Vision is now at his job doing mindless work and begins to ask questions about what exactly they do there. After a conversation with his boss, Mr. Hart, Vision realizes that the special occasion is actually a dinner planned with his boss and his wife. Later that night, Wanda and Vision struggle to hide their abilities while making a last-minute dinner for the Harts. Wanda, with the help of Agnes, manages to put something together while Vision distracts Mr. and Mrs. Hart with some music. As they sit down to eat, the Harts ask Wanda and Vision their story, but they cannot explain where they came from or how they got married, where they got married, or when. Mr. Hart grows furious and begins choking on his food. As the couple reaffirm their love and straighten out some of their love story details, Wanda also creates some wedding rings for them to wear. As the episode ends, apparently, the real episode also ends because someone is watching them on an old-fashioned television. During what appears to be the 1960s, Wanda and Vision begin to hear strange noises outside of their house. The next day, they prepare for their magic act for a neighborhood talent show. While at home, Wanda continues to hear the banging noise from outside. She goes and finds a red toy helicopter that is in full color, opposing the black and white world that they're living in. It also had the sword symbol on it. Wanda and Agnes then spend the day with Dottie and a group of women from the neighborhood. At the neighborhood watch meeting, Vision becomes friendly with the local men to inquire about the security of the town. However, he finds out that the group of men are just a bunch of gossipers. While chucking it up with the guys, they give Vision a stick of gum and he immediately has a case of robotic bubble guts. Wanda has a confrontation with Dottie and says that she doesn't mean her any harm. Dottie starts to get a little bold and says that she doesn't believe her. Just then, a voice through the radio tries to call out to Wanda asking her, "Who's doing this to you?" This triggers Dottie into trembling and crushing the glass in her hand, and she started bleeding. The blood being a bright red and also contrasting the black and white world similar to that red helicopter earlier on. When Vision arrives at the talent show, he appears to be intoxicated due to the gum that he swallowed. During the magic show, he ends up revealing many of his abilities to the neighborhood. Wanda uses her own abilities to make Vision look like he's doing some simple magic tricks. Afterwards, Wanda removes the gum from Vision's gears. Their performance is well received and they return home happy. And, all of a sudden, Wanda is pregnant. Suddenly, after hearing the same loud banging noise again, they go outside to discover a strange beekeeper emerging from a manhole on their street. Wanda doesn't like any of that, and their reality resets to before the banging sound happened. The setting then changes to the 1970s as everything becomes colorful and a voice is asking Wanda who is controlling her. In the opening credits, we see Wanda and Vision becoming even more settled into their new home. Vision is getting some ice cream and making a bunch of burgers, even though he doesn't eat. The family doctor makes a house call, and Vision tries to ask questions about why Wanda's pregnancy is happening so quickly. As the doctor prepares to leave, he says that he's going to be off on vacation going to Bermuda. Vision sees his neighbor Herb hedging his bushes, and then all of a sudden he's cutting through the brick wall. Wanda puts together the crib and paints the room. As she decorates, we do see more of her powers on display as she brings inanimate butterflies to life. Both her and Vision start to debate on the names of the baby, and Wanda continues to experience contractions. With each contraction, Wanda's powers seem to be having an effect on their environment. After the strange occurrences in the house and the neighborhood, Wanda mentions that these situations may have the neighbors grow in suspicion of the couple's secret. This prompts Vision to begin questioning all the previous weird occurrences, believing something is actually wrong here. However, this time reality resets again and goes back to the happy couple's attention to the pregnancy. The contractions begin again, and this time Wanda's water breaks. Along with that comes some busted pipes in the house and water everywhere. As the water stops in the house, Wanda air dries the place out. Vision quickly runs out to get the doctor. Wanda hears a strange sound in the baby's room until Geraldine rings the doorbell. Wanda throws on a coat to try and hide her pregnancy. Her coats start to change unexpectedly because of her powers, and she continues trying to hide her pregnancy. Just then, a stork walks out and starts to creep towards them. Wanda tries to zap the stork away, but it defies her magic multiple times. We then see Agnes and Herb whispering to one another, and they begin to ask Vision about Geraldine and start to cast doubts about her. Meanwhile, Wanda mentions her brother Pietro, and that triggers Geraldine to remember that he was killed by Ultron. That triggers Wanda to question Geraldine. Wanda also notices the symbol that Geraldine is wearing, and it just so happens to be the same symbol of sword that was on that red helicopter. So naturally, she questions who she is. Geraldine is like, Outside, Herb continues to try to tell Vision a little bit more about Geraldine's true purpose of coming into the town, but Agnes quickly stops him from speaking any further. When Vision goes back inside to look for Geraldine, Wanda has this creepy, odd look on her face as she says that Geraldine had to rush home. We pan out to see Geraldine shot out of some force field, and SWORD agents immediately swarm to her. SWORD begins getting to work on the new images they're finding. They start to identify the cast of the show as many of the missing people are from the town. They also discover Monica in a sitcom episode. Darcy comes up with the idea to transmit a signal to one of the radios which Agent Wu uses to communicate with Wanda. They also get an image of one of the SWORD drones that now has been changed. Meanwhile, SWORD sends one of their agents hooked to a line down into the sewers to head into the town. As Agent Wu and Darcy continue to watch the episodes, they notice that the show is becoming censored and skipping around some scenes. Meanwhile, we get a chance to see what transpired between the confrontation between Wanda and Monica. We see Wanda forcibly push Monica out of the reality-constructed town, leaving a huge hole in her home. Wanda reconstructs everything perfectly as if nothing happened. Vision enters the home, but Wanda temporarily sees a dead version of him. She reassures him that she's got everything under control and this is their home. Monica wakes up outside of the energy field and claims that this is all Wanda's doing. Wanda and Vision are pushed into the 80s TV sitcom era. The twins Billy and Tommy have been constantly crying, and Wanda tries to keep them from crying by using her magic. However, her powers don't seem to work. In comes Agnes to save the day as she volunteers herself to take care of the kids. Vision has second thoughts about Agnes helping out, and she pauses for a moment to ask Wanda for some direction. Wanda decides to let Agnes take care of the kids, but Vision is still highly suspicious of that awkward moment. Vision questions Wanda about the situation, but Wanda dismisses his concerns. While they were talking, the babies stopped crying, and it turns out the little twins from The Shining have instantly grown to being 5 years old. We go back to Monica Rambeau being examined and interrogated by Director Hayward after catching the ejectocito from Wanda. She explains that she was feeling a sense of drowning and hopelessness and a feeling of grief. Director Hayward and Jimmy Woo provided the SWORD briefing to the rest of the team. They believe that Wanda is now the primary cause of the event and begin to go over her history. Hayward and Rambeau have a disagreement as to whether Wanda is actually a terrorist or not. He brings up some of the new information which also shows that Wanda has infiltrated SWORD and stolen the Vision's body. The Nightmare on Elm Street twins bring a new dog home. Vision had a hunch someone would pop up with an item that they would require, and right on time, in comes Agnes with a doghouse for the new dog. Wanda conjures up a new dog collar, and Vision immediately calls her out on not hiding her abilities in front of Agnes. Wanda simply says she's tired of hiding. Vision continues to question what Wanda's hiding from him. A little bit after, in order to keep the dog, the children from the Corn twins age themselves up to be 10 years old. Meanwhile, Vision's job has upgraded to having computers. He jumps onto the internet and he taps into what appears to be a SWORD email or communication, and everyone in the office begins to read it in a trance-like state. Vision touches the computer and a flow of energy sparks. He then touches Norm, and Norm begs him to stop her. He says she's in his head, and it hurts so much. Vision touches his head again, and Norm goes right back into his sunken place. Billy and Tommy question Wanda about why Vision is at work on a Saturday. The Conjuring twins feel a little bit unloved, but Wanda lets them know that they are loved and family is forever. They ask her if she has a brother, and Wanda admits that she does, and he's far away from here. As she goes outside, Wanda sees the Sword drone that is spying on her. Sword attempts to fire a missile at her, but the drone was disabled. Wanda comes out of the hex, mad, and tosses that drone back at Sword. She warns them to leave her be or else. As she leaves, she mind controls the agents to point their guns at the director. We jump back to find out that Sparky has died after being found in Agnes's bushes. The Poltergeist twins were about to age themselves up until Wanda stopped them. The kids tell her that she can fix the dog by bringing him back from the dead. Wanda gets real sentimental with them and tells them that in life there are just certain rules that you cannot break. We find Vision and Wanda back at home, and Vision tells her that he spoke to Norm free of Wanda's oversight. He tells her about the pain that he was under, but Wanda tries to dismiss the issue and actually rolls the credits. But Vision wasn't having that. He continued to press Wanda and says that he believes the reality was initially part of Wanda's subconscious and she only recently became aware of it. Wanda continues to deny the issue, and Vision gets upset with her lies. Wanda says that all of this is for them and she will handle it. Vision wants to know what's outside of Westview because he can't remember anything before Westview, and that he's basically scared. He questions why there are no children, and Wanda quips back that she doesn't even know how all this started. Then the doorbell rings and Wanda is shocked to see her brother standing at the door, Pietro. We start off with the family getting ready for Halloween. Vision tells Wanda that he will be going on patrol for Neighborhood Watch and he can't take the Poltergeist twins out to go trick-or-treating. That's okay though, because Pietro volunteers to take Vision's place instead. The family goes out to trick-or-treat and Wanda begins to test Pietro. He immediately calls her out on it. Wanda then meets up with Herb and she learns that Vision is actually not on patrol with the Neighborhood Watch. Meanwhile, Vision is walking around and notices some neighbors doing the same actions over and over again. Pietro and Wanda leave out of the theater, and she expresses her displeasure with how much of a bad influence he is on the Hellraiser twins. Pietro responded and said, "This is what you wanted, was it not?" And then they ask each other about one another's accents. He said that after being shot, he only recalls being called up by Wanda. At this point, we also see Tommy manifest his powers for super speed, and he runs off with his brother. Back on the Sword base, Darcy begins hacking into Hayward's files. They find out that Hayward is tracking Vision. She finds out that Hayward is tracking Vision by tracing the decaying vibranium. They notice that Sword was able to actually see a head count of the people within the hex. They also notice that there are individuals who appear not to be moving at all. Vision continues to explore the town to see people motionless. He then runs into Agnes at the end of Ellis Avenue. She said she was looking for the town square but got lost. Vision wakes her up and she is surprised to see him. She then begins to laugh hysterically in a maniacal manner. He puts her back to sleep under Wanda's control and begins to walk towards the perimeter. Meanwhile, at the Sword base, Monica gets a text from her friend that will help her go back into the hex. Darcy warns Monica against going back in because apparently Monica's cells have been altered and Monica dismisses the warning. She insists on helping Wanda. Darcy says that she'll stay back because there's still something big going on with Hayward's files. Back in the hex, Quicksilver and Wanda talk about the good old days. He also asked her where all the kids were hiding in the town and commends her on the reality that she's created. He asks her how did she even do all of this, for which Wanda has no idea. As she reminisces about her feelings, she immediately sees a dead version of Pietro. We go back to Darcy as she continues to crack into Hayward's files. She emails the files over to Jimmy Woo. Meanwhile, Vision makes his way to the hex barrier and pushes himself through it. However, the hex continues to tear Vision apart as it holds him back. He begs for the Sword soldiers to help the residents of the town. At that moment, one of the twins telepathically picked up on Vision's cry of pain and also the mind of Director Hayward. He tells Wanda about Vision's situation, and Wanda immediately freezes the entire reality and everyone in it. She releases a surge of energy, and we see that the Hex has now begun to expand its reach. Only a few people were able to escape the expansion, including Monica, Agent Wu, and Director Hayward. We find Wanda waking up in bed alone, exhausted after expanding the Hex in the previous episode. The Blair Witch twins come in and complain that their video games are acting up. Billy also mentions that his head feels a little weird and that things are really noisy. Wanda goes to the kitchen to get some breakfast, but things continue to glitch around her. Vision wakes up in a circus and finds Darcy and tries to remind her of the brief connection they shared at the Hex. Back at the house, the Omen twins asked if they could go looking for Vision, but Wanda says that if he doesn't want to be here, then there's nothing she can do about it. They also ask about their Uncle Pietro, and Wanda immediately says for them not to consider him as their real uncle. She also says that she has no answers for anything that's going on. Agnes comes in to offer a helping hand and takes the kids off of Wanda's hands. As they leave, Wanda notices that more things are beginning to glitch. We jump back to Jimmy and Monica after they escape the Hex. Jimmy checks Darcy's email that she sent to him. Turns out that Director Hayward was not trying to decommission Vision, but rather he's been studying Vision's body in an attempt to bring him back online with S.W.O.R.D's resources. That is, until Wanda broke in the S.W.O.R.D and took Vision's body away. Monica pulls up to the remote campsite near the Hex where she meets some military friends who have come to her aid. They manage to deploy a space rover according to Monica's specifications, which theoretically could allow Monica to re-enter the Hex. Back in the fake reality, Vision wakes up Darcy's mind to ask her for help. The two get into a truck and drive off to Vision's house. At home, the reality glitches continue for Wanda. In her interview, she says that she can't fix it. The interviewer asks, "Do you think maybe this is what you deserve?" We jump back to Agnes's house as she sits between the Texas Chainsaw twins. Billy confesses to Agnes that he likes it at her house because her house is quiet. Furthermore, she's quiet on the inside. Going back to Monica, she puts on a spacesuit and gets into the space rover to enter the Hex. The rover is not able to penetrate it, and the Hex begins to rewrite the vehicle. Monica manages to escape just in time as the Hex spits out the rover and half of the vehicle was transformed into a van. She decides to enter the Hex on her own will. While in the Hex, she breaks into various versions of herself and she hears different voices from her past. She breaks through and runs into the town. Vision and Darcy are driving back into town, and Darcy fills Vision in on the events of the past, including Infinity War and Endgame. Vision believed that it was Wanda that was preventing him from coming home with all these road obstacles. So he realizes how silly it is for him to be blocked in traffic, so he just ends up flying away. Meanwhile, Monica commits a couple of crimes, like trespassing and breaking and entering into Wanda's home. Wanda is triggered at the sight of her and tries to force her out of her house once again. She tries to slam Monica to the ground, but Monica instead performs a classic superhero landing along with some blue energy. Wanda is shooketh. As the two stand off, Agnes comes in to take Wanda away from the situation. While inside Agnes's house, Wanda wonders where her children are. Agnes tells her that they're probably in the basement. As Wanda goes in to investigate, Agnes enters in. She introduces herself as Agatha Harkness and places Wanda under what appears to be a form of mind control. We see flashbacks of Agatha entering into Westview and transforming her clothes and entering the black and white TV sitcom world. We then see a number of times when she's been interfering, including her participation in the magic show, mind controlling Herb, having something to do with Pietro, pretending to be under mind control when speaking to Vision, being the interviewer during Wanda's reality TV sitcom, and killing Sparky the dog too. We conclude with a mid-credit scene where Monica is snooping around Agatha's home until she's caught by Pietro. Monica's eyes turn violet. We start off in 1693, Salem, Massachusetts. Now initially, this would appear as though it was a typical witch burning by the residents of the town. However, it was actually Agatha Harkness who's on trial by other witches in her own coven. They begin to restrain her with their magic, but that does not last long as Agatha appears to overpower them and break free. killing all of the remaining witches, including her own mother. We're back with Wanda, and Wanda can't read Agatha's mind because the basement is protected with magical protection spells that only allow the caster's magic to be in effect. Agatha confesses that Pietro was a crystalline possession serving as her eyes and ears. She also continues to question Wanda about how she was able to pull off such a complex magical feat to control an entire town, or magic on autopilot as she puts it. Agatha creates a magic portal to help Wanda go through her memories to discover her secrets. The very first memory we explore is Wanda's childhood with her family having a TV movie night. We see that despite the warfare going on outside, the family would still watch sitcoms like I Love Lucy, Dick Van Dyke, Malcolm in the Middle, and others. That is, until a bomb goes off destroying her family's home. A Stark Industries bomb lands right in front of Wanda and Pietro, just waiting to go off. However, a young Wanda stretches out her hand, and miraculously, the bomb does not go off for 2 days. As the memory ends, Agatha theorizes that Wanda actually used a probability hex spell to keep that bomb from going off. On to the next memory. Wanda visits the Hydra lab where they were conducting the experiments with Loki's scepter, aka the Mind Stone. The Hydra scientists confirm that so far, no one has survived touching the scepter. As Wanda approaches, the stone floats towards her. The stone's casing shatters and the Mind Stone appears. Wanda sees an image of a figure wearing a headpiece, and then she collapses. While in her cell, the scientists play the video footage, but it appears edited, leaving out the Mind Stone experience. We now move on to Wanda at Avengers headquarters, sometime between Age of Ultron and Civil War. Wanda expresses her grief to Vision, and we see him comforting her. We jump to the final memory of Wanda visiting SWORD headquarters to demand the body of Vision. She enters Director Hayward's office. He shows her Vision's dissected body. He also informs Wanda that it's their obligation, ethically and legally, to keep Vision's body because of the amount of expensive vibranium his body is made out of, and because of the fact that he is a sentient weapon. When Wanda said she wanted to bury Vision to have a funeral for him, Hayward said, "Are you sure? Not everyone has the kind of power that could bring their soulmate back online. Oh, I'm sorry, I mean back to life." Wanda said, "No, I can't do that." Wanda gets into her car and drives to Westview, New Jersey. She drives through looking at all the residents of the town that she will later hold hostage in her magical reality. She pulls up to a lot of land and looks at the deed with the handwritten note from Vision. The emotional weight of the moment overcomes her, and she lets out a burst of magical energy which begins to build the home that could have been. Her powers continue to engulf the entire town, and she also produces a brand new Vision. As Wanda concludes the trip down memory lane and the TV sitcom illusion is gone, she races outside. She finds the Exorcist twins being held captive by Agatha with magical restraints around their necks. Agatha says that Wanda has no idea how dangerous she is, that Wanda is supposed to be a myth, and that she's a being capable of spontaneous creation. Agatha confirms that the entire reality and family Wanda created is all chaos magic, and thus it makes Wanda the Scarlet Witch. During the mid-credit scene at SWORD's base, they are now ready to launch. Hayward enters in and says that from the many failed attempts, all they needed was the energy from the original source to finally power up the Vision. We pick up the episode with Agatha holding Wanda's kids hostage. Wanda fires her magic at Agatha, only to see that it gets absorbed. Wanda's hands begin to blacken as a result. She tosses a car at Agatha and knocks her boots off. Powder Vision flies in and encounters Wanda. Before she knew any better, he lifts her up ready to kill her. However, the Technicolor Vision swoops in to help. The witches head off to battle, and so do the two Visions. Meanwhile, Monica is locked inside of Agatha's home with the fake Pietro. Now back at the SWORD base, Hayward is monitoring the situation and trying to confirm control over the White Vision. Jimmy Woo is brought in after being detained, and he threatens to expose Hayward's cover-up. Hayward, however, isn't concerned about that and dismisses Woo. Jimmy, on the sly, stole a safety pin to get out of his handcuffs and used the phone to call other federal agents. Wanda encounters Agatha in the middle of the town again. She informs Wanda that there's an entire chapter devoted to her, the Scarlet Witch, in the Darkhold, aka the Book of the Damned. She also states that the Scarlet Witch is not born, but forged. The Scarlet Witch doesn't need a coven or incantations to make spells. Her power also exceeds that of the Sorcerer Supreme. Worst of all, the Scarlet Witch's destiny is to destroy the world. Wanda, of course, does not believe that she's the evil person that Agatha has described. Well, Agatha released the mental control on Dottie, whose real name is Sarah, and Sarah begs Wanda to allow her daughter to be free. Agatha releases the control of the rest of the citizens of Westview, and they all begin to surround Wanda. Monica finds a utility bill addressed to Ralph Boner, along with a picture of him with his name on it. She quickly deduces that this is actually Ralph's home, and Agatha is controlling him. Monica uses her new ability to see the magically infused necklace that was controlling Ralph. She rips it off and he comes back to normal. As the Vision versus Vision battle ensues, the Jeepers Creepers twins notice that Wanda's in trouble, so they head into town. Meanwhile, Wanda is still being confronted by the people of Westview. With their pleas overtaking her, Wanda went full Wayne Brady and started choking people all around her. She quickly releases them. They beg her to let them go or just to allow them to die. Agatha coaxes her into using her magic to release the people. Wanda uses her magic to open up the hex to allow the townspeople to escape. The two visions continue to fight on, but with the hex now being lifted, the hex vision is weakened and falls to the ground. Sword begins to enter into the town with this new opening. As Vision begins to break apart, so do Wanda's kids. Wanda then makes the decision to close the hex back up. This, of course, restores Wanda's family back together. The more Wanda uses her powers, the more Agatha siphons off her power. This, unfortunately, leaves Wanda with some ashy Walking Dead hands. We see sword vehicles infiltrate the town, and Wanda's family immediately takes up superhero poses. While Wanda faces off with Agatha, the American Horror Story twins handle the sword military. Hayward the Duck pulls out a gun and attempts to shoot down the boys, but Monica jumps in front of the bullets with her newly formed powers. An extra bullet flies past her, and Billy uses his powers to stop it in its place. Hayward tries to make a run for it, but Darcy sideswipes him, preventing his escape. The two visions continue their battle inside the town library. As they lock up, Hex Vision explains that he is not the real Vision, but merely a conditional vision. White Vision wants an explanation, and Hex Vision uses the philosophical example of the Theseus thought experiment. When the White Vision ponders this, he acknowledges that he doesn't have the memories of the true Vision, but Hex Vision unlocks those memories by touching his head. With those memories now unlocked, the White Vision proclaims that he is the Vision and flies away. Wanda appears behind Agatha to give her the red wiggly woos straight to the head. Agatha is placed back in Salem at the stake. She begins to beg for mercy, but yet it's another ruse. The dead witches rise up and become extremely rude by pointing at Wanda. They declare that she is not only a witch, but the Scarlet Witch. The roles are reversed, and now Wanda is at the stake. Agatha asks Wanda for her power, and in exchange, she'll allow Wanda to live in Westview in a painless reality. Wanda releases a powerful surge of energy to break herself free. She shoots magic all around where some land on Agatha and some miss by a large margin. As Wanda begins to dry up like a California raisin, Agatha absorbs much of Wanda's magic. As Agatha tries to deliver the final magic blow, she realizes that her powers no longer work. Wanda, on the other hand, has gone from ashy to classy, and power has now been restored within her. Turns out that all this time she's been creating the same magical runes to seal away any other magic outside of her own. She then draws all the magic out of Agatha and transforms into the Scarlet Witch with a new outfit and headdress. She confines Agatha to becoming a resident of Westview and to continue playing the role of the nosy neighbor under the same mind control as she used on the other residents. Wanda and her family go back home as the hex continues to shrink, converting things back to normal. Meanwhile, Wanda and Vision tuck their kids in bed for the last time. She thanks them for choosing her to be their mom. Wanda and Vision come together to say their final goodbyes. As the hex is gone, Wanda is left standing in the lot where the house used to be. She takes her walk of shame through the town as the residents of Westview give her the evilest of eyes. Wanda vows to learn more about her power and escapes the crime scene, becoming a fugitive on the run. We jump to the mid-credit scene and Monica and Jimmy Woo see Hayward being arrested. An agent takes Monica into the theater and she reveals herself to be a Skrull. She says that an old friend heard that Monica had been grounded and would like to have a little talk with her. We jump to the final credit scene with the log cabin with Wanda sitting on the porch drinking her tea. As she walks into the kitchen, in the back room, the Scarlet Witch is levitating and reading the Darkhold book with symbols floating all around her. As the pages turn, she can hear the voices of the Pet Sematary twins crying for their mom to help them. If you're new here and you like what you see, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and don't forget to hit that bell so you don't miss out the next time I drop a video. I've got more videos and reviews to do for you all, and until next time, I'll see you all later.